and welcome to episode 393 of the Awesome Comics Podcast, the place where small press makes one hell of a big noise. I'm Vince Hunt, and as always, I'm joined by the creator of the webcomic Vanguard, Dan Butcher.
Hello.
And like Beetlejuice, he's the ghost with the most. It's Tony Esmond.
Hello.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the full-on proper Awesome Pod road trip across 2023.
We're all excited, aren't we? Because someone just sang a song to us. So we're giddy.
2 songs.
Yeah.
2 songs. Yeah.
And why was I talking about ghosts? Well, because
you're not afraid of them.
Well, actually, I am. Because we're going to be talking about the comic Dead Seas with Cavan Scott and Nick Brokenshire. It's an interview, trust me, you're unprepared, with both the knowledge, insight, unpredictability, and musical interludes that you may get shortly. But it is well worth the wait. So, so we're starting off this year strong. And as always, it's lovely to be joined by Tony and Dan. How are you?
Lovely to see you.
Yeah, lovely to be here, Vincent.
Bananas.
Oh, he called me my first name. Do you know what? I'm really leaning into having the nickname Bananas. I don't know why.
I think it's good.
I think it's a good one.
Yeah.
Was it Sue Bananas? Is Joe Pineapple's sister? I found her this week, didn't I, in 2000 AD? So I think you're related to her.
Yeah. You think I'm related?
The Sue Bananas, the future robot. And
there's an element of sort of a sexual element to the banana thing, and also like you could go off the fucking handle at a moment's notice.
Like you're like the crazy bloke down the pub. If you lose the snooker, you just fucking smash someone up.
Yeah.
But what's that got to do with the sexual element, Dan?
Well,
there's always a
banana's
sexual
quite
element.
phallic, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know where you'll find some quality content though, rather than this
where you find more phallic features. Floppy phallic features.
Our lovely sponsors, Comic House, who may get mentioned a bit later as well.
Yeah.
They're an indie.
We're not charging you extra, Pete.
No, we're not. No, they're an indie comic marketplace that loves indie comics just as much as us. If you go on comichouse.com, there's a huge selection of titles on the database. If you self-publish, you can also list your work on there. It's another avenue to get your work out into the world, as is the Comic House app. A digital library of amazing indie comics from past guests, present guests, future guests, all kinds of guests, and us. But don't hold that against them that we're there. No, in all seriousness, though, there's a brilliant database full of amazing comics, and it's basically like Netflix subscription service, bet £3 a month. We cannot advise you enough because if you sign up now, there's loads to check out on there. So there's a 14-day free trial. So there's no reason not to start 2023.
Get on it.
Yeah. I know January can be a little bit of a pinch. So if you just want to read loads and loads of comics, if you're as mental as Tony Esmond and wants to basically spend every waking minute reading
comics... That's all
comics,
I want, baby. That and talking to you two. They're the two things I want in my life.
Yeah, that's the only time he stops reading comics, when he talks to us.
I read comics during sexual intercourse as well.
Make of that what you will. But and maybe
I love making Dan laugh. Like I live for it. Naturally.
Well, you had the big load out in front of you, didn't you, T?
Maybe when he's doing that, he's taking advantage of his subscription.
I get the lady to sit on a wet newspaper in the crossword
just
section.
Stop
and then when I'm doing
just
it from behind,
enough.
I can fill in the
Enough. You beast. But seriously though, 14-day free trial. Check out comichouse.com. And thank you for that. May have been one of the worst ones. It started off so strong.
I thought it was going normally there, and then I just threw that hand grenade in the end because I like making Dan laugh. That's all. But yes, we're not going to mess. We're going to do a bit of chat after this. But we had such good fun. Good little chat, innit?
Yes.
So we're just going to.
We're top interviewers. I keep telling you guys, we're good interviewers.
Are we?
I don't know. I made that up.
Well, it helps with having great guests.
But that's what you do nowadays. You just say how brilliant you are to everyone, don't you? Then everyone believes it. That's how it works these days.
Well,
so I
as
thought
Dan
I'd start
says,
adopting that.
I tried that, my wife doesn't seem to work. But...
yeah. I try it on Tinder. Never works.
Yeah. You bloody...
Will you stop? I'm trying to introduce... Right.
You know where else you can find great guests and great comic creators?
No,
we've done that.
No, we've done that. But I'll tell you what,
we've done Comic House, haven't we?
Right,
we've done Comic House.
We've done Comic House, and right now you two are going to shut up. I'm going to say some words to you two, while the rest of you lovely people listen to us talking about Dead Seas and more. Be prepared for loads of comics to be talked about with Cavan Scott and our pal Nick Brokenshire. Okay, folks, here we are with a bit of a special sort of chat we're going to have now. We're going to talk about the wonderful book we've mentioned a few times on this show, Dead Seas. But in order to do that, we thought we'd actually drag in the creators. I say creators. One of them may be joining later because they're parachuting.
Where is he?
He's parachuting in currently as we speak. So who knows when he'll arrive? And at that moment, listeners, it will probably be very unprofessional as we do the whole "Oh, hello, how are you?" blah blah blah. But before that, we've got the writer with credits including the likes of Star Wars, Teen Titans, 2000 AD, and more. And like I say, it's the writer behind Dead Seas. It's Cavan Scott. Welcome to the show.
Hello there. I do apologise for Nick. I mean, I start every conversation like that, to be honest.
Drunk again.
Yeah, even for people who don't know him or know that I work with him. I go into the post office, and before they ask me what I want, I say, I'm sorry about Nick.
Sorry.
I'll have 2 first-class stamps and sorry about Nick.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Don't tell, when he does turn up, don't tell him I've said that. So if he ever listens to
yeah, he'll have to listen to the show. He'll listen to the show and find out.
Oh, the things we could say now would be amazing.
Thankfully, he won't have heard the 10 minutes that we were speaking about before we started recording.
This is a bit where we find out he's had a car crash or something, isn't it? And then we all feel bad.
That'd be awful.
We'll have to edit the show.
Oh, God, let's not.
That would be dreadful. Because obviously, the worst thing about that would be that, we need to finish issue 5 and 6.
Yeah, you still got the art.
So unless he can still, if he can still draw, great.
Take his whack him into the hospital. Be fine.
Yeah, exactly.
The ruthless nature of a writer. But we have just had a very pleasant conversation about comics old and new for the past 10 minutes. So we know that Cavan gets on with this like a house on fire.
That's nice.
Yeah. And I will say he's got his bookshelves are filled with. It was very impressive when we saw.
Yeah,
on your
I like chatting
video.
to a creator and you spend as much time chatting as looking at their bookshelves.
Yeah,
that's why I do it. Because
sound them out.
If the camera's on, they don't listen to what I'm saying. It's really good in editorial meetings because I can be wibbling on about any old rubbish, but they're looking at pictures of the Yeti from the Second Doctor. So I always think that's a good thing.
Obviously, like you've worked with many a publisher that we've talked about, and we've spoken about like how comics have changed, since post-pandemic and stuff. And as we know on this show, like Zoom meetings or Google meetings or whatever have changed the game for businesses in general. How has that been for you, like interacting with creators, your collaborators and stuff from across the world and publishers?
It's made everything so much easier. Thank God for the pandemic. Right. I mean, what a wonderful thing that was. No, well, so basically, I work on a big project called Star Wars: The High Republic, which is comics and books and games and toys and everything and blah, 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 loads of stuff. And we were doing that anyway. And we basically had the launch event in Disney in Burbank in the States in LA, and that was about 2 weeks before lockdown. And so. Literally, my wife's getting on the phone going, "You are coming home, aren't you?" So I was like,
"If I can."
It's quite sunny, and we didn't, and then everything hit, and so there were probably, it did mean we put on a slight pause because again, it was the pandemic. No one knew what was going to happen. We didn't.
You got a pens down for a bit, did you?
A little tiny bit, only a slightly a bit, but because I was writing books, comics, and other stuff for that, it was the comics sort of stood a bit of And I think it's Marvel being sensible and going, we just don't know. So can we hold off? I'd written issue 1, I think, but what it did, it gave me a chance to go back to them and say, you do realise issue 1's rubbish, don't you? Can I do it again?
Okay.
And I completely rewrote it. But what happened was, so there's 5 of us who created that sort of like era in Star Wars. And at that point, I was the only one in the UK. And then there was a couple of people in New York, a couple of people in New Orleans, and so actually it made life a lot easier because we spent more time talking to each other. We were supposed to keep flying back and forth to America to have like story conferences and keep things going, but what actually happened is that every day just became a story conference because we discovered things like Zoom, and so it made it it just made it so much easier. And I think generally and this is me talking completely personally, in every media I work with, it's become easier because when you're a Brit working in America, you have to go, I need to remind them I'm here all the time. You need to go to San Diego, you need to go to New York, you have to go, hello, I'm here, because you're not at the convention circuit every week. But no one was. And so people became used to having Zoom calls. It became a norm to the point that when everything opened up again, and I'd say, well, shall I come over to LA or whatever, or New York or whatever? They'd say, oh, no, we don't want to meet anyone. we don't want to be in a room with anyone. So actually, people have got a lot more used to going, do you want to jump on a Zoom? So whereas before, it's made sort of the networking element of it actually a little bit easier.
Level playing field, isn't it, for us in the States?
Yeah, exactly. And just also, so we've got the artist on the High Republic, Arya Anadito. He lives in Indonesia. And so, again, while I've worked with people all around the world, because it's become so normal to just sit and put a screen on and talk and do the thing that I always wanted ever since I first saw Star Trek, to be able to talk into a screen. With Arya and me, it's perfect because we can literally do it at any point, it's because it's become so second nature, and you can actually show people things on camera and things. So it's the one good thing I think that's come out of it all is the fact that it's opened up a new way where you haven't got to worry about email so much or whatever, and so you can actually just say, yeah, should we just have a chat for 10 minutes?
Yeah, I see it as like I see it as sort of like comics only fans. That's how I see it in my head.
Well, the thing is, a lot of the job, I mean, people talk about whether it's the drawing process or the writing process, that's one part of it, but a lot of it is emailing, having meetings, but having catch-ups, making sure that everyone's on time and stuff. There's so much more that goes into it. So,
was it Neil Gaiman said he suddenly realised one day he was a professional emailer? And it does get like that sometimes. I mean, I've now limited it, so I only look at emails for a certain part of the day, because otherwise I'd just be always on email. So, it's definitely changed the way we're all working, and I think for the better.
So with your writing process then, is it sort of get up, look at emails for the first half an hour to an hour, deal with those, onto the writing? Do you have like a working day sort of schedule?
I've tried to do it the other way. So I try and get up and write and then look at emails.
Okay.
Because if I look at
that's
email,
good discipline though.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't always work, but if I look at email, the day can be completely it could be a train wreck, completely derailed, to really push the train's metaphors, because you have people, especially when you're working with like people in the States, so they've sent over stuff overnight, which is really important and needs to be looked at now, and so you naturally just go, I better do that, but actually half the time you've got to then think, well, they're not going to be up for hours, so I can sort of completely poleaxe my day by doing that thing first, and then realise, I've still got to write those pages, or still. I mean,
that's the good. That's the good thing about working primarily with companies that are based in the States, and it's one of the reasons that I like getting into work early, because I've got that period of maybe an hour where nobody else is going to bother me, so I get work done. But if you're working with the States, and you're right, you're looking at the emails in the afternoon, you've got a period where they're not going to flip in.
Exactly. Mornings are great, and Thanksgiving is great, because on Thanksgiving,
that's true. That is true.
You don't get a single email. And so there's always a sign off for it, like on the Star Wars team, and they all sort of wish everyone, on High Republic, wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving, and Cav to have the best Thursday of the year, and it really is. So it's like, today I get so much done. But it's I'm a bit of a productivity nerd. I used to be a magazine editor, so my job was managing time and managing teams and managing getting things out to press.
Can you say what magazines they were?
So I started on a magazine called T3, which is a technology magazine. I was early on in SFX. I was like one of the original in the.
Were you one of the people who sort of hid the bottom of the F, so it looked like sex from?
No, I was never on staff on SFX. So basically I started at Future Publishing in '95, and I got a job in the production department dealing with print and film in those days of putting the films together. For the printers, because I wanted to become a writer, and I didn't really know how to do it. And so I thought, if I'm there, I can just start badgering people. And on my second day there, they announced SFX, and I just barraged them with like, I've written for Doctor Who fanzines, and And one day they just went to get rid of me. They went for the review section. We've got these 3 really fat, really god awful fancy novels. Read these and give us 50 words on each.
Oh God! Right.
I'm thinking this will obviously get rid of him, and I did it. On Monday morning, I turned up bleary-eyed, not having slept, going, here you go. I hate fantasy. And I think they went, oh, God, he's not going to go away, is he? And so, I just kept it. And they used to do something called the couch potato, which was... I
remember that. Yeah.
It was like video commentaries before, and I was one of the original couch potatoers. And so I just started freelancing for any magazine I could really. So, T3 was my first staff job. I worked on... I edited Disney mags for a while for Future. I was the editor of Disney Girl for many years.
Oh, yeah.
And then
I was a big fan of Disney Girl. What a great.
Oh, I see. It was, when my girls were young, they were really impressed that I knew so much about the princesses. Everyone else thought it was a little bit odd.
A bit weird. Down a rough pub.
Yeah, exactly. Well, actually, I think you'll find Cinderella. And then my last sort of big mag job was this will mean nothing for people in the States or elsewhere, but there's a TV show called Country File on BBC One, and I launched the magazine, and I was
brilliant.
Now you're talking my language.
I was John Craven's ghostwriter for a while, so
that's going to be the title of the episode. There you go.
that sounds like a new comic that's about to come.
It sounds like a Vince comic. Going back to the SFX blocking out the bottom of the F, which I loved. I did think that was a great idea. I do giggled in the fact that Mark Miller brought it back with the word Clint.
Clint. I was just thinking about Clint. Yeah.
It's like fucking Nathan Barley and Sugar Ape.
Yeah. That's like the best comedy series nobody knows, isn't it?
Yeah.
Nathan Barley.
Yeah,
it's like a working dream.
It's also come true.
Yes.
But with that sort of experience in magazines and publishing stuff, has that been invaluable when it comes to like your comic work now?
Yeah, and I mean, as I said, I'm a nerd for this stuff, so I try and pack my days to be as productive as possible, to the point I'm now going, well, that's not good for me. So I'm now sort of pulling back and trying to pack in time to do.
That's what Nick thought about tonight.
Yeah, exactly. You know what's happened is Nick went, here, mate, do you want to do this? Because he's obviously got that accent, Okay, do you want to do this? Do you want to do this podcast? It's really good. These guys are brilliant. I'm going to be there, honest, and we're going to have a really good time together. Bye.
He's totally catfished you.
Bastard.
We're sending that money later.
Yeah. I'm going to be having words. What was the question? Sorry, I forgot.
I think we were talking about as you're working.
Yeah. I mean, and also the other thing is with it. I know I've sort of gone, a poacher. What was it? What's the phrase when
poacher turned gamekeeper?
Yeah. So it's the other way around. So I was I know what it's like to run magazines and run comics and run teams, and so I think probably I'm a little bit more. I understand a bit more of what the stresses are at the other side of the table as well. So,
I think that's a really good point, man. When you don't realise what an editor does.
Exactly. And knowing the pressures, and I've worked for, like you say, I used to run licensed comics for Disney, so I know what it's like to deal with approvals. And so when I got to work on things like Star Wars, and when I started writing fiction, I was doing basically it was my side hustle. I was doing some Doctor Who stuff back before Doctor Who came back, and so they'd let anyone write it. But I knew exactly what it was like to be the licensor, having to do licensee dealing with a licensor, and so but it also means I know about fake deadlines and know about how things work. So it works in so many different ways. So I try not to be the guy going, well, actually, as I know how schedules work, but every now and then it is quite helpful as well to know that, well, if we're going to do this, we can probably push it a little bit.
The thing is with you is a lot of your work has been on IP, isn't it? When you talk about that side of things, yeah,
absolutely.
That's got to be a headache for you and the editor a lot of the time, isn't it? And the artist, even more possibly,
I never meant it to be my career, but it's just one of those things. And actually, when you fall into it, it's quite a good career. But again, you've got to be able to cope with it because it has stresses that you don't have in any other job when you're writing. Because
what sort of thing, man?
Because you're dealing with someone else's baby all the time, and so you can't get too precious, and it's always tighter than you think it's going to be. It's not. I mean, I think I wrote a Doctor Who novel in 3 weeks once, and it shows when you read it. But that's because that's what the schedule was, and so people coming up to me and they're saying, they quite often say to me, "Oh, I want to be a licensed writer. I want to write Star Wars. I want to write this. I want to write that." And I'm like, "Well, learn how to be a writer, or have a career beforehand, because you've got to know." You've got to have resilience to do it.
Yeah, you got to have the experiencing and sort of killing your darlings as well, haven't you? Whether it be like writing in like, and I'm sure Dan, you'll agree with this. Like we're graphic designers, and obviously you work for clients, and you can. And some designers probably want to do these things, and they think that their idea is the best, but the client's always right.
Yeah,
exactly.
And it may sometimes you may think, "Oh God, I did 3 versions. I didn't mean for 2 versions to get merged together." But at the end of the day, that's what you do, and
that's what they want.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you also know how far you can push a battle, and I don't think it's good for an IP writer to completely fold on every argument. But at the same time, there's going to be a point when they're going to say, "Well, that's what's happening," and you have to go, "Okay, fair enough."
I mean, as a comic writer of an IP as well, you're falling between 2 fandoms, aren't you? You're falling between the people who read comics and the people who love the whatever it is elsewhere. Exactly. You've almost got, plus the editors, you've almost got 3 overlords there, haven't you?
Yeah. I know you've got editors, and then you've got the licensor, and then depending on who's ever in charge of continuity, which more and more companies have now. Right. It used to be, so I've been doing this 20 years, and I've absolutely noticed a change, because it used to be a lot of a case of like, oh, it's a comic, doesn't matter. But now it matters. And so, and you go from the extreme of something like Star Wars, which has a group that is absolutely there to try and make sure everything ties up as much as they possibly can. So jobs when I've had when it's like, because they're like Doctor Who, when I started writing Doctor Who, the BBC didn't think Doctor Who was ever coming back. So the stuff we did in those early Big Finish, there's a company called Big Finish that does audio.
Love them, man. Yeah, big fan. Yeah,
cool. And that's where I sort of started writing, professional fiction. And the things we got away with, it would be like, no way, you can't even believe it now. But there wasn't really an approval process.
But they now do stuff like, I listened to their Prisoner episodes recently. Fucking amazing. Imagine that must have had a process.
Yeah, Big Finish. I think they're the best at what they do. They really are, and I think
I think they're really good. I think they do better Doctor Who than the BBC have ever done on audio.
Yeah, and I because I've got into because I started writing audio drama. I still write audio drama, not as much, but but now the market's changed because America's sort of catching up a bit, and so I did some Star Wars audio dramas for Del Rey, and again I was like, their their reference points were old school radio, and so I'd be sending the Big Finish stuff, and they'd be going, "Oh," because as Big Finish has come from the, radio drama's never gone away in the UK, whether that's the Archers or stuff like Big Finish. It's daily, and we've had the Dirk Mag stuff, of the
Superman,
with Superman,
stuff,
and now he's doing Sandman and things. Big Finish have come from that background, and so again, I share people, and now people like Audible have caught up, and they some of the stuff Audible's doing is amazing, and Dirk's doing a lot of it.
Yeah, the recent Nemesis Audible from 2000 AD was brilliant. Yeah, really good. Yeah,
but in the States, when we first pitched this was supposed to be a comic book podcast.
That's right.
That's fine.
When we first did the first Star Wars audio drama for years, I had to go and literally stand on the stall for audio, the Penguin Random House audio troupe, and explain what audio drama was. We had to play it to people because they just didn't.
Wow.
know.
Okay.
And it was produced. It was promoted as an enhanced audio book because it was. I didn't actually aim to stand there so long, but I became so fascinated and passionate about it because people just weren't getting it because they just didn't have any frame reference at all.
I mean, we grew up in it. When you look at stuff like Hitchhikers, Radio 4 really was the governor. I know when they dumped a lot of their stuff onto podcasts and stuff, it was a game changer for me. There's loads of good stuff there.
Yeah. So, and that's the crazy thing. I've sat in, at San Diego on panels and talked about the Archers. It's the most bizarre clashing of worlds.
Yeah.
But now the Archers is a massive thing in sort of like audio drama fans in the US because it's available as a podcast.
Get on that. Get on that for a comic, Cavan. I think that's going to be a good comic.
I was again when I was in my
crossover.
Days,
get on it.
When I was on my Country File days, I was on the Rural Affairs Committee of the BBC, so I was involved in the Archers. And I've
such a rock star.
I know. Look at me, rock and roll. And I know, God, look like halcyon days. But I've snuck references. There's references to Ambridge in the Archers and a lot of my Doctor Who stuff.
Oh, cool. Nice.
Because the Archers exist in the Doctor Who's universe, so as far as I'm concerned, it's all the same.
It's canon.
Why there has never been, and I did pitch this when I was there. Why the TARDIS has never landed in Ambridge, I don't know.
They put it in fucking EastEnders. You think they could do
exactly.
it?
Exactly. But I've pitched it many a time.
Yeah, we need TV comic back or something like that, don't we?
Yeah, well, God, I think that was part of Look-In and stuff.
I bought some Look-Ins recently. Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah, there's some weird Cliff Richard comics in there. But
it's the Gary Glitter ones you got to worry about.
Yeah. Who'd have thought that had become rhyming slang? Yeah. But the thing is as well is the I think the TV comic was the one with Doctor Who where after he regenerated they just put Tom Baker's face on top of John Pertwee's costume, didn't they? And stuff like that. Back, like you say, back then the IPs they didn't care, did they? It's gone.
Because they didn't. I don't think they anyway. I mean, you look about the original. Have you ever seen the British Star Trek comics? They're amazing.
No.
The Enterprise has rockets.
Is that the one where it lands? Doesn't it land on the planet?
I think it lands on a couple, but there's like the nacelles. IDW did an amazing collection of them recently. The nacelles are rockets in the comic, so they're literally going as it flies, and the bridge looks nothing like the bridge, and it's just bonkers, and there's stuff like Kirk and Spock fighting the mummy and things. And
is that the ones we saw original pages of, Tony, where it landed on a planet and then fell over on one side because they didn't put the kickstand out or something like that?
Yeah. That was at Lawless. Did you do Lawless, Cavan?
What was that? Say again?
Did you go to Lawless? That was in Bristol.
No.
They had a little exhibition of old UK art, British art there.
Yeah,
and that was some of the pages we were looking at. We spent ages looking at them.
Yeah. So from all of this IP.
Yes.
When did you get the itch to do your own original stories?
I think I've always had the itch, and I think it was always my plan that I'd do the IP stuff, and then I'd move into it, and then I realised I'm a writer, a jobbing writer, and I want to work, and so I think I stayed. I kept getting. I mean, I was lucky. I kept getting offered to work, so I eventually left my job as a magazine editor and went full time, and ended up being offered different things, and that led to Star Wars as well. And so it's always been there, and I've always sort of played with stuff in the background, and on the side, but it just became my job, was doing IP for a long time. But what happened was doing things like Star Wars gave me the platform then to start being able to really push it. So it's been my plan for the last few years to gradually do less IP and more original in comics and books. And it's absolutely hand on my heart because of IP that I'm in that position. I can do it now. As soon as the High Republic comic came out and we sold 200,000 issues on the first issue, that was a game changer. So, and again, Dead Seas with IDW, which is the comic I do with some artist who doesn't bother to turn up for interviews, and but that's because I was working with them, so I was doing work on, I did a Transformers Back to the Future mashup with them, where we made the DeLorean an Autobot, and it was working on that.
That's the sort of sentence that would make my before we did this show would make my head spin. I mean, of course the DeLorean's an Autobot.
Of course it is. Well, he's actually, first of all, he's a Decepticon, but then he has a change of heart. And so I was doing that, and then the editor working on that. I'd been working on IDW a long time, and I remember going. I kept saying to him, my first experience of IDW was in the 30 Days and Nights and stuff. You were the horror. I'm a horror fan. You were the horror publisher for a long time, and then you became the licensed publisher. You became the My Little Pony publisher. And he said, well, we're trying to get back. And it was around the time where Star Wars was, moving over to Dark Horse again. And so he said, have you got anything you're thinking about? And I had a couple of creator-owned gigs up to that point with Volt Comics. And and so that's where Dead Seas came about, because me and Nick had been playing with this, and we met doing Star Wars.
So did the Ward come before this then as well? Is that?
Oh, the Ward I did. Yeah, the Ward I did years ago. But the Ward is a comic where, because of the pandemic, that got pushed back and back and back. So the Ward it's out in trade back now.
That's great, man. Really great idea.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah,
brilliant. Thank you.
The cover to that first issue is probably my favourite cover for ages.
Oh, it's amazing. Nice. I mean, Andre's incredible. So if people who don't know, the Ward is basically ER with monsters. Most of my work seems to be this with monsters. And that just came because my wife is obsessed with ER and Code Black and things like that. And so I was just sitting watching it and going, it would be really funny if one of these were, was a Minotaur
or something. Yeah.
And that's when the Ward. So the Ward, I think I wrote. The Ward was my first creator-owned I sold, and just for various reasons, it kept getting pushed back and back and back. And then pandemic had, and then I've done something called Shadow Service of, oh look who's coming in!
Hey, it's Nick.
Oh,
hello, man.
Oh, is he playing a guitar?
Please forgive me.
We forgive you. That's the best entrance we've had so far on the show. So
I can't believe you've left me with these people, Nick. I turned up.
There's a lot of stuff there I didn't realise about you, Nick, to be fair. We found out. Yeah.
Nick was going to be here. I might have made up some stuff. Nick was going to be here, and then no sign. So I mean,
we were like, put your keys in the bowl, and we'll explain the rest later.
I don't know if you noticed this, but it was actually perfect timing. So we just got to the point of talking about Dead Seas, which just proves that Nick is such a diva. He didn't want to hear anything about you.
It's only because he's heard it all before.
Hey, Nick, you're right, man.
I'm so sorry, chaps, but
that's all right.
I got swept away by baby bedtimes, and these things just like you can't step away. You can't step away to do it. So.
No worries, man. All good.
No problems.
But I'm here now.
Well, you're here. All is right in the world again, and you're
here.
I'm
off. So it's been lovely talking to
you. Oh, I'm so sorry, Cavan. I do.
It's all right, babes. Yeah.
It's all right. I'll forgive you. We were worried you were in a ditch somewhere, and
we were going to have to edit the show because we were laughing, making stories up about where you were, and then we decided you might have been in a car crash.
Yeah. But I mean, it's quite a distinct possibility, isn't it? It's either a baby or in the ditch. That's basically.
I was hoping you were going to. If that is going to happen, it will happen after issue 6.
Yeah. Probably.
Yeah. Maybe you were doing some inking like Rob Liefeld does on the road. Crash
That video's up to this day.
Yeah, never ink and drive, folks. Never ink and drive. But yes, as we were saying, you guys have been throwing this idea for Dead Seas about for a little while since Star Wars.
Yeah, how did it start? Yeah.
So it started when we'd worked together on Star Wars Adventures for IDW, and I think we met Nick in Chicago properly at Star Wars Celebration in a really odd bar. Which is where Nick meets everyone. And we started talking around that time about trying to find something that we could do together, because we both like similar kind of things. And I had this idea called Ghost Ship knocking around, and we started talking about it, and Nick started drawing the most amazing ghosts. And so it's all went from there, and we did shop it around quite a bit for it.
Yeah, I think I read in one of the interviews with you, Cavan, that the pitch was actually a different thing. It was also involving a different character who does appear in it, but isn't Gus.
Yeah.
For example.
So the lead character Gus, he was in it, but we did together a pitch which was sort of like almost like a pre-title sequence kind of thing of like one of the his character actually appears in issue 1, but he's a little bit damaged in issue 1, and so we sort of find out through that why. And so I think we're going to bung that up on my website soon. But cool. So that was it. We pitched it to, I don't know. Do you say? Yeah, I'm going to say where we pitched it. We pitched it to Humanoid. We do a lot of the sort of French Belgian type thing. But at that point, they said it was too European. which was like, hang on, what?
Oh, right.
Because they were trying to break more into sort of the American market. And then we talked to Legendary about it. But then, as I was saying, I was working with Chase IDW. We'd obviously both worked with them on Star Wars. I was working with Chase on Transformers, and yeah, they said, is there anything you've got that you want to think about? We're trying to push more back into doing originals, because I'd been talking to them about 30 Days a Night and things, and Lock and Key and things like that. And I said, well, there's this thing I've been working with Nick, and it went from there, really. Yeah, and so it was a long process, but I think we finally found the right home for it.
But for people who haven't listened to maybe this first episode, haven't listened to last week's episode where we talked a bit about it, did one of you guys want to give a little summary, pen picture of what it's about without any spoilers?
Nick, do you want to do that? Because I've been talking a lot.
Sure. So the story is about our world, where ghosts, it turns out, are real and manifested, and they're able to be held on these offshore prisons or containment facilities, and the ectoplasm that they leave behind is harvested on these ships, and so they send in crews of convicts to do the work as a means to pay off some of their debt to society, and also so that they can do the dangerous work. So we're following one particular crew on one particular boat called the Perdition, and lots of adventures ensue, including certain ghosts escaping, and then certain I don't want to give too much away, but ghosts escaping and convicts having to deal with that, as well as other things that happen in following issues.
So it's got that sort of, for me in the first issue, it's got that sort of horror thing where people are trapped in an environment you can't escape from, kind of thing. I love that sort of horror, you know.
I've been wanting to do something based on a sort of like a Hulk or a prison ship for years, because I think when I was at school we did Great Expectations, and there's it's the bit at the beginning when you get the prisoner who's escaped from the Hulk.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, actually, first of all, I want to know why it's called the Hulk, because he's green. And secondly, I want to read that story. I don't want to read the story about Pip and his, family. I want to know about the prison ship.
Or the classic, the Dracula, the Demeter.
Yeah.
I want to know what happened there.
Which is why I loved when they did the Gatiss and Moffat version of.
And there's the episode based on it.
When you get an entire episode on Demeter, I don't know how you say it, but that was great, because again, it's a part of Dracula. It's just sort of dealt with like that usually, and it's not in the book. It's a fair bit in the book, but it's still in most films. It's like, oh, and there's the ship, and there's no one on it.
I mean, there's so many classic sci-fi horror stories, Aliens, The Thing. I watched that movie Life the other day, where they're just stuck somewhere and they can't get out of it because it's like just surrounded by water,
Yeah. And based on the Siege stories, I said we've talked a bit about Doctor Who. The best Doctor Who are based on the Siege stories, when you're
based on the Seagal movie. You mean?
Yeah, exactly. Always the best Doctor Who stories are based on Steven Seagal movies.
Out for Justice, particularly, I see Doctor Who doing that well.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what we wanted to do with this. If we
Give someone a ponytail, I'm in.
At its core, it's a Steven Seagal homage.
Everything is, man.
It all goes back to Under Siege.
My entire
That's
life
what
is,
we say.
My entire life is a Steven
You don't know, but we've got to think about Steven Seagal on here. It is a little bit of a thing. It's an ongoing thing. Yeah.
Well, who doesn't? Who doesn't?
Exactly. I got invited onto a film podcast by one of our friends, and I proper played it that he's the new Orson Welles for the whole thing.
What do you mean? What do you mean played it?
Exactly. Thank you. Yeah.
Is Under Siege the one that features 1989 Playmate?
Elenia Laniak, her name is. The most paused moment in all of movie video ship.
So when she jumps out of the cake.
That's the one.
But the cake's ended up on a ship. That's been taken over by terrorists.
Gary
all the way onto it.
Gary Busey is dressed up in like a big, what looks like pantomime drag, and as he's dressed like that, says to someone, "Do I look like I have psychological problems?" It's classic.
I think I remember about that film is that isn't that the one at the end, spoilers, where he gets basically pummeled by an anchor, And then 5 minutes later, everyone's slapping on the back, going, "Well done, mate, for saving the world." You know, his back would be a pulpy mess. But he's Steven Seagal, so he doesn't.
He's the governor.
Care.
That's what happens. Yeah. Anyway, back to what we're talking about. That's another IP for you. There's a little IP you can maybe jump on. Some Seagal
comments. He's probably a name you don't really want to touch at the moment.
Right. No. Shush. I'm going.
A bit like Candyman. He keeps saying his name. He fucking turns up.
Oh,
yeah.
In a minute, he's going to arrive at the podcast and apologise.
Yeah. Eating a big carrot.
I'd love
playing a guitar.
Sorry.
Yeah. he's gonna grind you down with this forever now, Nick. You know that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. The only thing is, it's happened once before. Like there was this, there was a podcaster in the States, and I just got completely swept away by something else, and then at the end of it, I was like, oh no, and like you must have been waiting for ages, Cavan? Like talking
83
to
years. 83 years.
This is going to be like I'm sorry, it's going to be Cavan. I'm sorry, I'm a bit late with this last page. What, like you were with that podcast? But anyway, sorry, go back to Dead Seas. Yeah. No, I'm reading some of your commentary, Cavan. It looks like you two have quite tightly collaborated on it, because I know there's one point you're talking about, which is one of in the first few pages. It's almost like a poem or a song that's sung that is in fact something that was sung to you, Nick, by your grandmother. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, when we were like, Cavan had like a rough idea of the characters, but then when we started to flesh out the ideas while we were designing the thing, Cavan asked me, I can't remember if you asked me regarding if I had any ideas about the main character, but I
think it was you drew him. I think you drew him, and he was speaking Spanish, and so. Because we did a lot of concept work on this beforehand. Right. I mean, Nick, we've treated it a bit like a movie of like having Nick was being a concept artist. So when we were talking about it, he was just sending me sketch after sketch. I mean, there's a character called Elvis in it, who's one of the guards, and he's absolutely as well, because one of the prisoners in one of the original sketches looked a bit like an Elvis impersonator.
Yeah.
So. And eventually he sort of went over and became one of the guards. And so a load of it. So I think with Gus, I don't think I knew there was going to be a character, and I knew his, but it was when I saw that bit of art, I was like, well, tell me about this. Why is he speaking Spanish? And that's where we found out, I found out about Nick's heritage and things. And so that's when sort of Gus became the character he is.
And for those of you that don't know, like I'm half Venezuelan. So.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that, mate. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically my on my mum's side, my grandma, whenever I went to stay with them, that was a song that that's a thing that they sing to you if you hurt yourself, or like if
interesting.
If you get an outie or something, they do this little. There are different versions of it all across Latin America, but it's basically the same thing. And so basically I'd drawn this character. And then Cavan said, "What, what's the deal with this guy?" And then I just suggested, "Why don't we make him, Hispanic? Because that way I can kind of funnel quite a lot of information and sort of, texture of the character, just to make him a bit different from the usual, white, male protagonist, or even for that matter, the usual female protagonist, which we get a lot of these days." Yeah. So it was nice to.
Did you channel some of that into the monster design? Because I mean, you had not too much spoilery here, but the ghosts are very distinctive, aren't they? They're not like Casper, are they? Let's put it that way. There's something very.
I'd love to see Casper turning up, like.
Yeah, let's do it.
Amazing.
Well, we that was part of the like the development of that we did, the back and forth that we did in the years ago now, but like it was very much discussing why and how they manifested. So that included, like, why, for example, why was I drawing all these monsters with bizarre, appearances? Why weren't they just shades of people? And so, like, we had to come up with an idea of why that was, and in part, it's because they are a psychic manifestation of the person at the moment of death. So it's not just the person, but like a projection of the psyche of the person when they die, and then which is in turn kind of corrupted by whatever supernatural forces are at play.
So some of these people are twisted in real life, then, man. If this is what you're thinking about,
is, you sort of see it later on when. Here's a spoiler for you: people die when the ship starts to sink, and so and that means there's more ghosts. So you start seeing the process in very early stages.
Oh, interesting!
Yeah.
Because we haven't got time to explain why this person's got a horse's head, but we just think it's cool that they have. But most of the time, we sort of have an idea, why he's got a horse's head and maggots coming out of his eyes. But I mean, obviously, there's a big part of me going, one day I'd quite like to tell all those stories about why the ghosts of dead seas look like they do. But in the case of the Gran, the nan and of the girl in the first, she's completely sort of like
that's such a reveal as well.
She's a great design, and the fact she's sort of like she envelops her, her granddaughter. She's so big and spiderly. I think originally you had a wheelchair as part of her as well, didn't you, Nick? But we could
she had bits of wheelchair sticking out of her.
Because that was a late edition, the first 2 pages. Am I right in saying?
Yeah, it was. So originally we were going to go straight to the boat. And again, I wanted to show the world a bit more, and also to show. And I needed to find a way. Gus's big motivation is the fact that he's an ex-con man. He's got banged up. He wants to get back to see his daughter before she forgets who he is. And when you're doing a disaster movie, you've obviously, which is what this is in effect, you've got to try and introduce all these characters and make people care about them immediately. And we haven't got a lot of space because it is a comic. And so it just seemed a good way of getting a load of information in, of setting up this world, which again, you've got to explain that these people live with ghosts 24/7, and it's always something a bit creepy about having a kid being haunted as well. But I love the idea that it's a kid being haunted by a ghost, but unlike things like the Conjuring movies and stuff, which I love, she's just like she's back again. It's that thing about kids by this point will be completely either traumatized to hell by the fact ghosts are there, or they're just there
deal with it
everywhere. And it was just a really nice, concise way of sort of like showing the world before we got to this boat, because otherwise, I mean, then that's it, isn't it, Nick? It's like as soon as you're on the boat for 6 issues. So, and we get a couple of flashbacks to different periods before, but it's dealing with the disaster on the boat after that point. So I felt it was really.
There's a real art form to that setting up, though, isn't there? I mean, we talked a bit about this last week, but you've got a lot of characters to fit in a small amount of time. You've got to show personality, motivation, story beats, some exposition, all of that to get in. And I think we were talking just before we started recording about you got to make it a whole meal, haven't you? It's got to be something that's worth your money, which this is, I think.
Yeah, and I think we're both influenced by European and British comics as well, which are traditionally a little bit more dense, I think, than a lot of American comics. And so we wanted to have that experience. It had to feel claustrophobic. It had to feel that there was lots going on.
Yeah, but I think you need that hopeless element. If a story's like this, there's got to be a possibility of just losing all hope because you're in the middle of the ocean. There's a storm coming, and you can't get out. Nobody's going to get to you. Sorry, Nick, you were going to say, mate.
I was just going to say, lads, that one of the things. This is the point at which I stick my nose up Cavan's bottom. But like, one of the things about working with Cavan is that, like, because he has experience and a facility kind of across a few different disciplines, not just comics. I notice a certain streamline quality to what he gives to me. So like he can give me something that is dense and full of exposition without it being really hard, like to try and convey. Whereas I've had moments where I've received scripts where I have to really untangle things and kind of pull things apart in order to rebuild them. I never have to do that with Cavan's work. It feels very just well written, basically.
Yeah.
You're a nice man, really, aren't you? But the thing is, I'm also very aware of it when, there's a bit coming up in one of the issues that Nick's been working on recently. And in the script, I say, this is it. This is the info dump, because I knew, it had to come. And so again, it was trying to find the moment, and also knowing, because this is now a mutual appreciation society, knowing how Nick works and knowing how Nick can structure. I try not to be too prescriptive, knowing that there will be, Nick will come up with the best way of getting it across. I try and give an idea of what I think it should be, and I think we've meshed quite well, and I think we have a very similar idea of how the plot, the pacing works.
Yeah. The better you know an artist or an artist, the better you know an artist when you write your script, the less you have to write sometimes, I think.
Exactly. And I'm going to show some glowing praise to you now, Nick, because I'm a huge horror fan, like movies and books, etc. And when it comes to a story like this, part disaster movie, part ghost story, etc., you've an ensemble cast. Now, I've read many, especially an independent horror comic before, where the artist is trying their best, but a lot of the characters look the same, and you can't have that with these sort of scenarios. And in this book, everyone's got an individual look and personality. And that's not to say you're like stretch, you're going the extra mile to make everyone a caricature of something. No, it's just very subtle ways you do it. And so immediately I know what character I'm looking at. And that's very important when you've got
hugely important to story.
Story dense, and especially a story dense, character motivated horror work is hugely important. So I just want to say, top work, Nick. That's what.
Good man.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I do.
I think that's an art that's often forgotten in comics. Is the storytelling like that, and I think there's Dylan did it, Buscema did it. There's a lot of people out there who you've got to tell a story. That's got to be the first and foremost thing. And I think this is part of that. And that's what you do, man. As I've always said that about your work. It's very readable, which is so important.
Yeah, we were discussing that. Yeah,
I remember talking to Cavan and Chase, our editor, and just saying to them that because I started in indie comics. Like I didn't ever really have aspirations to do, like, say, big 2 superhero comics. I always wanted to be Mike Allred, you know what I mean? Or Mobius or whatever. But like so to me, like the beauty of storytelling lay in the possibility of simplifying it as much as possible in terms of storytelling. So the more you can boil something down to, like, if you can boil something down to 3 square panels next to each other, rather than 4 slanted panels that go across 2 pages and then overlap and do all these things, the less of that you can do in my book, the better, because it means that the person reading, whether they be a seasoned comic book reader or a brand new kid or whatever reading a comic, they'll understand what they're looking at. And there have been times when I've read a Marvel comic and just going, I'm not quite sure where I'm supposed to. It
looks pretty, but I'm not sure what's happening. Yes.
And so, like, I don't. The only times that you'll see like a squint panel or something is when, like, if something squiffy happens, like if the something hits the ship or something, or if they're trying to climb out of something, then I'll tilt the panel slightly. But very rarely will you see that.
It's interesting.
Until
there's a whole Alex Toth thing as well, isn't there? About whatever isn't needed, take it out.
Yeah.
So I was watching the Mike McNolan documentary that was kickstarted, Drawing Monsters, which it's amazing. And I hope one day they finally get someone to take it on mainstream, and put it out there. Because there's some brilliant stuff there, like from our Adams, people saying that as they were putting more detail in, Mike was just taking lines off pages and making things as simple as they could be.
You can see the Toth influence in him, can't you? Especially on the dark.
I mean, and that's the talent in that, man. That's what's made his style. Is that you look back to his original, and they show a lot of it in his original Marvel work, and it's just really busy. And then he gradually just works out that his style is being this almost stark and yeah, and he sort of sits there and goes, well, why is it so? It's all about the darkness, and he's like, yeah, I just don't like drawing things, and so yeah, but you can tell it's more than that. You know, you can tell instantly what one of his pages, you know, is, and you get so much character from the fewest lines possible. It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, his early work was inking. I've got one of his earliest pages here.
Okay.
Oh, and there's an entire thing in the documentary about how awful he was.
Oh, right, okay. It looks quite good to me. It's sitting opposite me.
Yeah, he was never awful. He was never awful.
I know, but he's in his own mind. I think that's the
yeah, I get it. Yeah. That's what,
there's a great bit when he says that, and it was the first thing. I don't think it was a Defenders or something issue, and it's like he goes, "It wasn't a great artist, and I made it look worse." And then they show a bit of it, and it's not great. I'm sorry, it's not good. But...
Although, as a writer, it's also great to browbeat artists, you know, because it keeps them in their place. I find as well.
I would never do that.
Yeah. Okay.
The other thing I wanted to ask about is this. What's becoming more and more popular is the mini series as well. You guys have done, because I'm guessing it's so much easier to pitch a book and get a book into production if it's 6 issues than if you say, right, this is going to be an ongoing. I've got an idea for issue 30. I've got an idea for you know. Is that something that's in your head as well when you're preparing this stuff to take to publishers, guys? Or
I think we pitched this one as a mini. In fact, they gave us 2 more issues than we pitched for. So,
okay, right.
That was a nice surprise when we got the contract. It was 6, brilliant, because I was wondering how we were going to do it. I mean, I think this is the kind of story that benefits the miniseries. I think there's stuff like we talked earlier about The Ward, which is my comic from Dark Horse, and that was pitched as an ongoing, and they said, well, you've got 4 issues. So I think it moves much faster than I thought it was going to.
But these things can start as minis and then come back as the second mini series. I mean, that's kind of Miller's model, isn't it? You know.
Yeah. And that's what I'm doing. I got a book with Volt called Shadow Service, which is like spies with monsters. Because as I said, everything I do is like
as monsters
with monsters. And that we've done it in sort of like batches. So it's I think they technically class it as an ongoing, but it's not, because it's like we keep going away and coming back. But yeah, I mean, it's hard for a company to give that much, put that much investment into something, because you know what the market's like out there. You know, it's there's a lot of competition, and so it's why comics are constantly having issue 1s. You know, it's the days, unfortunately, and I wish it wasn't the case, where you could have someone coming in and saying, right, we've got someone starting on Thor issue 278. It's really hard to do that these days. It's why, because again, a number 1 gives you a splash. It gives you a jumping on point. All those things that we now have to think about. Which we never really had to think about before, because that's not how comics worked. They were just sold in supermarkets and newsagents, and you picked
such is the shame that it's not anymore. Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you find the sort of PR angle of it? I mean, do they give you things you've got to do, or do you have to kind of sort of find your own feet around it, or?
IDW have been really good, actually.
Yeah, I've been really impressed with them this time. Not this time, but like on this particular series, like I can't believe the amount of stops they've pulled out with this one. Whereas quite often, you almost always you're just left to it. You know, like you want to do podcasts, or if you want to do interviews, you sort it out. You know what I mean? But they've done it for all 4 us, haven't they? It's been amazing.
Oh, nice.
It's been really good.
Great. Yeah. Good.
That's good stuff. Yeah, it's good to hear, actually, because I know I was speaking to a UK publisher recently, and he said to me, the only comics that sell, Tony, are the ones that the artist and the writer actually promote themselves. And I'm thinking, that's not fair. It's your business, my friend. You know, these people are writing something for you. It's not, because it's not really our job, is it? You know, it's become that job to be the person who promotes it. You know,
and I think that's the bit earlier on we were talking about, like scheduling and planning your time and all that kind of thing. It's the kind of stuff that no one ever talks to you about. You know, it's the kind of stuff you want to write or you want to draw, and you think that's my job, but actually your job, like Neil Gaiman saying he became a professional emailer. You know, I became a professional promoter at some point in my career, because you have to get out there and you have to do it. And and I've been for a long time, and I've pulled right back recently. I was a professional Twitterer, because that's what you had to do to get stuff out there.
Well, you've done what I've done recently, and it was nice to see, Cavan, because you've kind of gone, right, I'm pulling right back off Twitter, and if you want me, these are the links, and it's something I've done as well. Yeah.
I mean, obviously there's been issues with Twitter recently, but I think for me as well. Yeah. But I was getting so sucked into the drama of Twitter.
Yeah,
it was like because Twitter has been a lifeline, and a lot. I've made a lot of friends through Twitter, and and it's been and in the pandemic it was absolutely a lifeline. But I was
this show wouldn't be the show if it wasn't for Twitter. I think it's fair to say.
Then I found myself caring more about what was going on about the the Twitter crisis
drama.
And it was really, really getting me down. And I've got to that point in my life. I'm 50 this year. I want to get to the point where I don't, anything that is really sending me to spiral, I should probably stop doing. And so that's what Twitter was doing. So I just went. I'm still on there. I still post stuff, but I've said I don't
scroll, man. That's the secret. You got to play that Chaz and Dave song. I know Nick's a big fan of Chaz and Dave, the old I Don't Care song. That's a good one. Yeah.
The last job I did for Countryfile magazine was visiting Dave, because Dave, his career, his hobby is putting together old gypsy caravans.
Nice.
old Romany gypsy caravans. In the old sense of them, and he renovates them and stuff. And my last job for Countryfile was going to spend the day with Dave. And it was just the weirdest, most surreal moment. Brilliant. It was just bizarre. And obviously I was sitting there in my head, I was going rabbit.
I love that. Snooker Loopy, mate. What a song. I remember a friend of mine roadied with them, and he said one of them would come in, have cornflakes, and then pour vodka on them in the morning.
Nice.
In the bed and breakfast there. And, that's my lifestyle. That's what I want. Yeah.
I mean, what more do you want from an interview? We've spoken.
Chaz and Dave.
We've got comics. We got Steven Seagal. We got Chaz and Dave. Let no one say that this show doesn't give you what you want, listeners.
It's got international written all over.
Yeah. Trying to explain this to.
I think I've mentioned the Archers as well, haven't I?
Let's face it. And EastEnders. We've got a bit of that in there.
Yeah. To our lovely international listeners, look these things up. You won't be disappointed.
Wow.
And you won't be disappointed if you get your hands on a copy of Dead Seas, because it's a brilliant series.
It's a cracker, mate. It really is one of my favourite reads for a while.
Thank you.
And to be fair, we've only touched lightly on it there. There's some laws going on in it. There's it's got it written all over it. All the when you watch a great horror movie or read a great horror, there's always rules, isn't there? And this one has got they can't cross water, they can't see their own face. I love all that stuff, man. It's great.
What really started me when you said about the fact that the vessel starts sinking, I was like, yes, that's great. That's fucking great.
Yeah, Jeopardy. You got to keep putting these people in shit, haven't you? That's how it works.
Oh, and they do. Yeah, there's a lot of shit. There's a lot.
That's the quote. That's the testimonial from the author himself. There's a lot of shit.
It's also the bad review I've just written there as well.
Just post it.
There's a lot of shit in this.
So this is obviously available from IDW, so you should be able to get it from your
first issue came out last week. So
yeah.
And Comixology, of course.
Yeah, I read mine in Comixology.
Yeah,
good man.
So get your hands on it, because this is six. How many issues in total, gents?
6 issues.
6, which is amazing.
And you were saying there's going to be a lovely hardback as well. I don't
know. Well, I'm hoping it's going to be nice to be a hard. I don't know if it's going to be a hardback, but there'll definitely be a trade at some point.
Good stuff, man. Yeah, good,
brilliant.
And then series 2. That's what we're looking forward to.
Yeah.
We have discussed it, haven't we, Nick? It's just been,
But we'll have to see how the first season. It's like a TV show already.
There's a little hint.
We'll have to see how the first series ends. So we've all got to go out and buy all the issues.
I really should make up the ending soon, shouldn't I, Nick?
Yeah.
I'm writing it next week.
Right through desperation. It's the best way to write
it. That's how I write my emails.
Where I write my slash fiction about you.
Where can people find more of your work, gents?
Oh, they can find. Well, for me at the minute, probably Star Wars is where I'm doing a lot of stuff. So Star Wars: The High Republic from Marvel, Titans United from DC. But yeah, all that stuff I talk about on my website, cavanscott.com. So I get around a bit. So I try and put everything on there so people know what I'm doing.
Nice. It's nice to see people be a bit more sort of proactive with their websites. There was a point where, because of social media, websites became a thing of the They were sort of on the periphery.
I used to love blogging, and also it was the thing of actually because I did a bit today. I bugged something up, and I was like, I suddenly realised I don't care if no one doesn't, if no one goes to see it, I don't care. I've put it up there, and it's that thing of it's become that thing of actually the post in itself is the fun bit, and then not having to worry about who's liking it or whatever. And so, and again, it's all part of that thing of trying to remove myself from that spiral of like, oh God, do people like it? I just put it out there, and the same with comics. It's what we do with comics all the time. We put stuff out there and hope people will like it, but you can't care too much about that because then you go insane. You've got to care about doing the best job, and that's the one thing I've learned. Working on Star Wars, it's the one thing I've learned very soon. It's like all you've got to do is worry about the job because there's a storm out there, and if you get involved in it, that will become your life. And so,
is it a rising storm, Cavan?
I think if it is, it'll be a New York Times best-selling rising storm.
Hey!
See what I did?
Yeah. Where can people find you, Nick?
Well, currently all I'm doing is it's not.
It's not.
OnlyFans.
Yeah.
That's where he was. That's where he was.
He was sticking things up himself on OnlyFans. That's
that's where the money is.
I knew it.
Listen, rowdy mate. You can find me on Nick Brokenshire on all social media. Speaking of Twitter, that's slightly, I don't know how you say it in a politically correct way, but that slightly simple chap from the village that is always a few steps behind everyone. That's me. Like whenever things are going on Twitter, like if there's a big explosion, like this artist impregnated this artist, or Twitter's being taken over by Nazis.
That's what you were doing at the beginning of the podcast.
Jesus.
I'm the one that's like running about 5 steps behind, going, what? Tell me, what's happening? I never, ever, ever know what's going on.
Well, Nick, you make brilliant art, and we love it. Yeah. And also, you made a rod for your own back, my friend, because now you're going to have to play us out. You've got to say, sing us away, my friend.
Okay. Don't give any warning.
But and Star Wars as well. Okay.
Right.
Awesome comics.
Like he's in a box.
Yeah.
Don't forget to buy some comics from Comic House. They're the ones that are always sponsoring this stupid show.
Hang on, stupid. Hang on.
He's got fair point, V.
Fair play. He sings the truth. He's like Bob Dylan. Anyway, thank you for joining us, guys. It's been an absolute pleasure.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, chaps.
See, look at that entertainment, quality content, info, but most importantly, just a fantastic talk about comics.
Music.
Yeah, good stuff, man.
Thanks to Cavan and Nick for joining us. Don't be surprised if you hear more from them in the future. There's so much more we could have spoken about, and sensible stuff as well, not just the nonsense that we speak of. I didn't expect a Steven Seagal situation to happen during that,
or Emmerdale,
but it did.
It's weird because I fucking watched halfway through watching Under Siege during the week.
Classic. You can't watch that too many times.
The Mark for Death version on Disney Plus is the uncut one.
Oh, right.
Surprising.
That is surprising. Disney Plus normally cuts a lot of stuff, doesn't it?
There's a bit near the beginning where he like shoots up like a naked woman, and most of the cuts I've seen, they cut most of that out. You just see her get shot. And this one, it's like slow motion, her falling to the ground with bullets in her and her boobs, and it's like, fucking hell, it's Disney Plus. Didn't expect this. There you go.
Well, what can I don't know quite what to say. There's so many things I could say, but I would just say this.
Let's have a shout out.
Do we have any shout outs, chance?
Yeah,
I do. I've got one.
Go it.
So Monday the 16th of January is the regular Laydeez Do Comics Zoom get together. This time they've got a creator called amongst the creators they have on, they've got a guy called Wolfgang Crow. That's a cool name, isn't it?
That's
got
fucking great name.
Wolfgang Crow. That's got.
I've got fucking saddled with Daniel Butcher.
What are you talking about? Saddled with? That's a good name. That's a strong name.
Thank you.
The Butcher. No, he's got a book out called Fractures, which has just come out from Collosive Press, which is a London-based, South London-based publisher who I follow the stuff with, and is a very good publisher. But this Fractures has just come out from them, and I've ordered it, so I've got one on the way. So if you want to join in, listen to that chat, go to ldcomics.com for details. There you go. That's my only shout out this week, guys.
Nice, Dan.
I've got a shout out from Cliff Cumber, who just wants to remind us that he's just a great person, which I think.
Fucking seriously, has he shoehorned himself? Yeah. Has he shoehorned himself into this show? With
Plus, we've got to do a drawing for him.
Yeah, I think you do yourself a disservice by saying just, Cliff. Come on.
Yeah, we've got to do a drawing for him because he sent us a video of himself naked listening to the podcast.
Yeah. But still, that doesn't mean he gets a free pass to show on himself with a weak ass shout out.
To be fair, I did ask for shout outs and he was one of the only people to respond. So I feel like as a listener, he deserves that.
No, he's one of the family. But put some fucking clothes on, Cliff. Anyway,
well done.
Well, Tony's your collaborator, so make it that way, you will.
we only work naked on that comic.
Really? We only work naked. Is that the name of like your tell-all?
Yeah, I only do this with my knob out. That's the chapter 2.
So literally and metaphorically. So.
Yeah. Talking about getting back to the highbrow nature of this show. I really need to do some quality control on this.
Oh man, the fucking wheels are coming off, and it's
too late now, my friend.
I know. No. It's not too late to make things right in this world. And it's never too late to recommend comics to people. So we're going to recommend you some comics now. Who would like to go first?
I've got 2 again. Shall I bookend you boys?
I've got a quick one and then one that I'm still reading, but I'm definitely recommending that.
Okay. So my first one is Groundhammer and the Defenders of the Realms, issue 1. Created by Ben Garwood, story by Joe Stevenson, art and lettering by Phil Buckingham, produced by Mike Oxley. I'm not sure what produced means. I'm guessing edited, or maybe designed or something. I'm not sure.
Possibly.
First issue in a series that I spotted. One of the only few good things that ever came out of social media. I spotted this. It's created and written by Ben and Joe, who both served in the Parachute Regiment and in the SAS. The main character is called Matt Lloyd and is inspired by 2 soldiers who died defending their country. One is called Matt Tonroe, I think it is Tonry, and the other one is Lloyd Newell. The character in the comics comes over as someone who has seen it and done it, highly motivated, but someone who sees through the bullshit, which I kind of admire in a character. You know, there's that sort of pragmatic, zero melodrama. You know what I mean? I don't like people screaming and getting upset at things. If you're a geezer, you've been to war, you've done things, you just get on with it. You know, I think it's one of the reasons people like shows like Yellowstone and stuff like that. It's just geezers doing stuff. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. He goes on a mission, needs what he does what he needs to do, and then gets it on with the lady afterwards, which is just pretty hilarious. Really, genuinely, I found it a refreshing read. There's a little bit of King of Spies in it. I showed you guys the cover, didn't I? Could easily be a younger version of the character that Miller wrote. Something about it.
I love that cover.
It's a great design. I was literally just about to talk about the cover, man. That's an eye-catching cover. Tells you what you need to do. You need to know, doesn't it, that cover? Yeah, I really like that. I mean, I've seen Phil's work before, but I think this is probably the strongest work I've seen from Phil on a comic, actually. Really liked it. Cardstock cover, lovely production values. Told partially in flashback. So it's got that sort of bookend flashback thing where he's at a debrief, and then you go back into what happened and how he came to things that happened. He's on a mission on his own, and then after he does this mission, which you'll find out about in the comic, he strangely goes missing. And during the mission, he's been captured, he gets beaten, and he escapes. To be fair, I'm not going to give the whole story because it's a mission kind of comic, so you need to read it. Buy it, read it. Do you know what I mean? I'll give you the link in a second. There's this bad character called Dagon. There's a portal key that needs recovering, and there's an incident. One of my favourite bits is he steals a tank to escape, as you do, and he drives the tank quite a long way. And then when he gets out of the tank, he has, let's call it, a saucy sexual encounter with a lady who's a nurse, a sexy nurse, who turns out to be a bit clingy. when the submarine turns up to take him away, and he sort of legs it off to the submarine, and she sort of starts shouting things at him, like, you know what it is, you know what I mean by that. There's also a sort of mystical element to it that goes on, and there's quite a lot of backstory, other reading material that you can go to and read on the website. The hero and the villain, again, very delineated. You can tell who's who throughout it, like we just talked about with Nick and Cavan. There's a real energetic adventure sequence to it. The hero has a confidence and a swagger, and he's drawn in such a way. He's got a sort of great sort of surly, I know, sarcastic, and again, his actions are pragmatic kind of attitude that I like in a hero. If I'm going to be completely honest, I really like this. I find it a refreshing read. There's few that I'll recommend on Twitter because I don't go on there much, but this was certainly one of them. But there's a couple of issues with the lettering. I think there's a misspelling on the page one. There's a couple of moments where there's some white lettering on a red background that doesn't make it particularly readable, and there's a couple of moments where they cram too much into word balloons. But it's a small thing. I think get some advice, get a proofreader. Issue two, it's on its way. Actually, I think it's going to be great. If you were looking at a thematically organised shelf in a bookshop, this would sit somewhere between Connery's Bond and King of Spies. That's where I would put it.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it's got that feel to it, which I really liked. It's got a refreshing speed and bounce to it, which is good. And do you know what the good thing I'm finding at the moment? And I will literally bang my head on the table every day about the time it takes people to send you small press comics. I will post your comic the following day, if not possibly maybe 100th of a chance after that, the day after it. But the amount of comics I'm ordering now that take literally months to get to me. Some comics you only have an option of paying first class. I did it recently on a comic, and it took over a month to get to me anyway. So I'm thinking, why am I paying first class? Why am I paying £4 for postage on your comic when you just send it when you can be bothered? And this was very refreshing. It came to me. They must have just gone to the post office with it and posted it, which is great. That's what I want to see. If you're going to run a comic, you want people to read your comic, people have paid for it, then fucking send it to them. And these guys did that. On Twitter, you can find them at Groundhammer. Website and shop is groundhammer.com. Issue 2 involves a Gurkha. Have you ever come across anyone who's worked with Gurkhas or Gurkhas themselves, guys?
No.
They're fucking bastards. Fucking hell. Gurkhas are like one of the most important soldiers in the British Army. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? They're amazing. And they are the most lethal fuckers in the world. So I'm really excited to see that.
They used to kill, identify their targets by the way they did their shoes, like the laces and the boots, feel them.
Right.
And if it was like a certain way, they'd know it was a British soldier or a German, and then act accordingly.
Right.
Fucking hell.
I remember hearing a story about my mate who was on guard duty, and he looked down at his shoes, and the Gurkhas had crept up on him and chalked a message on the front of his shoes and crawled off again without him noticing.
Yeah.
It's like that.
Yeah, that's what it did, yeah. Like fucking...
Yeah, anyway, Groundhammer and the Defenders of the Realms, issue 1. Get on it. Like I say, go to groundhammer.com. There's loads of stuff on there, actually, some interesting backstory and stuff.
Nice.
I think they've got their own brand of coffee, believe it or not, which looks fucking... we've never seen that angle before. Do you know what I mean? But...
That's a good shout, because coffee does all right, doesn't it? I mean,
yeah.
There's a few coffee shops around, as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
And creators always need it, seemingly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I need it. Yeah. That's my first one, guys. There you go.
Nice. Do you want to do your quick one, Dan?
Yeah, in the Christmas episode, I think we was talking about annuals, and on the show itself, I ordered the Spider-Man annual that I used to pore over as a kid. Yeah. And it turned up in absolutely fantastic condition. And I did a little research, and I think it contains Spider-Man, the Amazing Spider-Man 47, 48, and 49.
Oh, it's the Ramita issues.
Yeah, and I fucking love these as a kid, because like the guy called what's the villain's name? It can stuck with me, and I bloody forgot it. Something Black he's called. Like Adrian Toomes, he's the Vulture, and this guy Drago Blackie finds out where his last Vulture costume's hidden, and nips it, and then he's flying around, and him and Craven basically face off against like a Spider-Man who's got cold and flu. And it's kind of strange because some of the book is like full colour, some of the pages, and they've done that bit where it's like just black, white, and red.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
And it's like, I know it wasn't like that in the comics, so I wonder why they've done it there and what process they've had to go through to do that.
Yeah.
But, oh man, yeah, it brought back.
Well, a lot of the Spider-Man comics were recolored. I remember when Marvel got that thing, didn't they? When the Spider-Man TV series was on, they started recoloring it, and it was all fucked up. I remember everyone hating it for a while.
Oh shit!
Yeah,
that sucks. But it's obviously like these annual covers at the time, the UK annuals. The cover artist was just like some jobbing artist, and it's like totally not reflective of the art quality you get within.
Yeah,
I had a great time rereading it. I loved it.
Oh, good work, man.
That's my first recommend. Go back and buy some Spider-Man from when I was a kid.
Nice. It's always nice to do that sometimes.
Yeah.
Vincenzo?
My recommend is from one we got emailed from a creator, Peter Conrad. He emailed a short little comic called Pain Points, which I had a chance to check out. It's a sort of landscape sort of book. It's about 43 pages, black and white, and it's very much a story. This is basically a collection of small cartoon strips about all the times throughout his life where he's hurt himself and things that. Now, I say that sounding like it's a humour book, and it kind of is in the way it looks, and there is a certain element of humour to it, but this is almost very, this happened to me, this is this is the pain that I suffered afterwards. And
it's like that incident I had with the Hoover.
Yes, that kind of thing. If you put that into a four panel strip, but there's from like just banging it. He actually bangs his crotch on a car door. He slams his car door too hard, and it bounced off the seatbelt, and as he says, whacked him in the junk. He says it was hilarious for everyone else, of course, but I still have a hard little cyst to this day. And there's a picture of him like, oh, just an absolute nightmare. He cracks his jaw on the floor at one point after a bike wreck, and he's got like a bleeding chin. I mean, this is an American creator, so so there are like he has to go to the hospital, but he has to park far away, and then after he gets seen by a doctor, he has 2 layers of stitches, as he says, 2 layers of stitches to hold my face on, which that is just a sentence I was like, oh. And then later he goes, I couldn't afford to have the stitches taken out, so I did it myself. I guess I missed some. I've been finding stray stitches to pull out for years. And you don't really think about that like it, because obviously in the States, just medical care and everything, just the little thing of just having stitches taken out. And there's a couple more tales in there which will make you sort of cringe a little bit. There's one called Outlier that says, you might think I have one tooth that sticks out. Actually, it's all the other teeth that stick in. And a tale about his teeth. It's a very sort of, it's an honest,
self-deprecating, which I like.
Self-deprecating little cartoon book, just about the thing. It makes you think, oh, you've had some terrible luck. But this is over a lifetime as well. I mean, if we made a record of all the times we like fell over and did something stupid when we were kids,
long fucking list.
Yeah, exactly. But one thing I like about this as well, he sent a couple of photos. This is a creator that I think
we'll always get you recommended, sending a couple of photographs.
No, but of what the book looks like printed.
Oh, okay.
Now I think someone like Matt Simmons at the moment at Sheriff Freak is doing an amazing sort of zine. He's showing off loads of zines and stuff, and this is very much in that wheelhouse. And I think one of the things that he'll appreciate, and a lot of our listeners will appreciate, Peter, this is a small, if you imagine, I would imagine it's like I don't know what the American size would be. It's almost like an envelope shaped book. It's sort of landscape envelope shaped, so it's not very big. Self-printed. You can tell it's the old school, probably a long arm stapler and some photocopies and things like that, because it's all black and white. And when you see it in the PDF, you don't really get the sense. That's what I love about seeing like evidence like this of a printed book, because you see the PDF and one of the pages is just lots of pills. And I thought, oh, that's a nice texture. it works in situ so much better, because the way you can get this book and his printed copies, they're in pill pots. He's literally like a medication. He's designed to be a medication, right. And the book is rolled up. It's only like a short, like, we always talk about like folding up a comic and putting it in the back pocket or whatever. This comic is rolled up, put in a little pill tub, so that from the outside you can just see the pills. You can see the texture that on a PDF is just one page of pills, but you see it in situ and it looks amazing, because he's even got like a prescription sort of stickers on there as well. So it's a fascinating way to do it. I mean, I love little touches like that, just to make you go, what on earth is this?
Yeah.
So good on him for that. I love sort of thinking out of the box when it comes to these sort of books, and he's got lots of little lots more cartoon work on his website. So if you go to attemptednotknown.com, that's his website page. There's a Patreon and stuff like that, but it's also a website that he's done lots of like short comics, like 6 pages, panel strips and stuff. And this website's good because it's just got a list on the side that you can just click and just check it out, like, just by the titles, like Comics Make Me Feel a Bit Better, to How to Boil a Frog, to the Bridge Project. So there's lots of like, it's just I'm not sure what websites that one of my friends who's an artist has got one of these things where they're just links. It's just like a list of comic strip names down the side. Very easy to navigate, very very simple, but definitely attemptednotknown.com. Peter Conrad is the creator. The only thing I would say about this book that he's got such a, on the strips themselves, he's got a lot of hand drawn lettering for the titles, and on the actual printed one, pain points and the credits on the inside are a simple sort of courier like font. I think his lettering's so good that he could have hand drawn the whole thing himself.
Okay.
Because some of those courier fonts can look a little simplistic. So
yeah, I love a bit of hand layering, mate.
Yeah. And certainly within the book, it's full of stuff like that. So that's my only minor thing, but it's certainly go to his website, discover some more, and we'll post up a picture of what it looks like in situ. Because it's a great little idea. I think it's a bit novel, it's a bit strange and novel, and we like unique ideas like that, especially for like the
definitely,
indie
especially in the small press indie scene. Yeah, definitely.
And you must, if you're walking around a small press convention and there's a guy with just lots of pill packets on his table, you're gonna be like, what is that? So yeah, good stuff. Okay, who's next?
You want to go, Dan?
Me, yes. My recommendation is the Nice House on the Lake.
Okay.
First couple of issues. Yeah. Have you read this one?
No,
I've read the first couple of issues. Yeah.
James Tynion, written by obviously Department of Truth. We've got Alvarez Martinez Bruno as the artist, Jordi Belair colorist, and world design on the letters. And it's one of those books I don't really want to tell you too much about it because it absolutely fucking ruins
it's a bit like
it.
Department of Truth. There's a spoiler in that first issue, isn't there?
It's a big spoiler in the first issue. Yeah. Honestly, if I tell you too much about it, it just fucks it up for you. So I'm really kind of got my hands tied here. But it's a great little story. I really enjoyed the intro to it, the setup, and like a lot of this stuff, it sets up this world, and then you think, well, fuck me, how's this all going to play out, and how these characters are going to interact with each other, and where's it going? And it gives you hints of things down the line. And you think, well, the story can't play out like that then because this happens, and I really recommend checking it out. It got to a lot of the top of a lot of people's lists for last year on their comics. And after reading the first couple of issues, I can see why. I really enjoyed it. I just want to tear through the rest of it, see where it goes. But I feel bad that I can't talk too much about it. But it comes across as like kind of a horror what if story, and just with Tynion's storytelling, it does.
Tynion's on a
I wonder if we can get him on, because obviously we know people he's worked with and stuff. I wonder whether we can. That'd be good.
Yeah.
It's interesting because it does that thing of the horror characters, all these people coming together, and they're not all completely obnoxious, which usually is like what they try and do a lot with these things.
Yeah.
Much like the comic we were just talking about.
Totally.
They're very identifiable and like.
Well, with that copy of Tynions, they've got to look different, haven't they? There's got to be. You've got to be able to tell them apart. It's quite important, isn't it? For it,
and there's a lot of stuff put in there and built up, and you think, God, this feels so well planned out. So, without saying more, I would recommend A Nice House on the Lake. Go check it out.
Makes a good trade, I'm guessing, to read. I've only read the first 2 issues. I really need to get back on it.
Yeah, I'm on the trade, and I'm like, well, I've only got a few more pages left of the book one, so I've got to finish. I found Fables the other day too. I've got to finish off the trade on that and get back where you said it gets really, really good.
You need to get into 2 and 3. It changes. Yeah, the art changes. The art's a bit more simple. Simplistic, that's the wrong thing to say. The art's different in the first trade.
Stylized.
Yeah. It then goes off and it gives it almost like a much more fairy tale. It's not fairy tale. I don't say it like that. Sort of folk horror fairy tale thing going on. There's an ornate way that he shows that, which is really interesting.
The conceit is that like all these fairy tale monsters and characters are now living in the real world, and there's a kind of a bureau set up to handle their interaction with the world and life and stuff, and that's where it starts off from, doesn't it? The premise. I mean, fuck me, the series has been around for donkey's years, hasn't it?
Yeah, so I'm loving it, man. So,
cool. There you go. That's the second one.
Cool. My second one is Power Wash by Josh Pettinger. Have you heard of Josh?
No.
It rings. Go on.
Maybe rings because I was chatting to
Yes, it does. It does ring a bell.
Yeah. I got chatting to Josh on Instagram the other day, and he sent me the digital copy of this because he doesn't have a UK distro, sadly. Not sure where we're going to get. I imagine he's going to be the sort of guy that someone like Drawn and Quarterly, Fantagraphics, someone like that, Silver Sprocket or someone will put together a collection of at some point. I'd been pointed at Josh's work by a number of people, actually, and he'd been mentioned by a few different sort of groups I'm in and people I chat to and stuff like that. But it was recently on the Gutter Boys podcast who named him as the runner-up of their Pimp of the Year. So they do this thing called Pimp of the Year, Simp of the Year.
Yeah.
Right. So Pimp of the Year, he came runner-up. It turns out that Josh is originally from the Isle of Wight, actually. So I was chatting to him about being it because I've done some work in the Isle of Wight. So I knew about it there, and I was sort of chatting to him about it. So it's a black and white comic with a funny, dark, adult. I'm going to call it Clausian, but it's too much of a touch point these days, Clausian, isn't it? It's got that sort of weird underground feel about it. It's pretty nuts, but super funny as well. And that's the line I like. I think there's a lot of interesting stuff coming out of the States in this. I don't say in this sort of mold, but in this sort of people taking chances area, I suppose I want to say. So what's the story about? The story follows someone called Tedward, who's not exactly one of life's alpha males. You know, in fact, he's just been dumped by his girlfriend called Lilja. The names are just sarcastic. I think he's just taking a piss with the names. And he freaks out and starts crying while she's dumping him. And he says what he's desperate to know. He starts crying, "Why are you dumping me? Why are you dumping me?" in the classic non-alpha male way, you know. And he says, "Is it because of this classic and high and tight haircut I've got?" And you know, it's clearly not. And she's sort of smoking and clearly thinking he's an idiot. And he wanders about. And he becomes a bit lost, and he's sort of ruminating on memories of going out with this girl and his love for her and his stuff. And he says, "I remember when she used to massage my calf muscles after I'd done a power walk." So he's about to kill himself. He goes up to this church steeple and he's about to throw himself off when this weird bloke turns up with a reverse Dickie Davis. When I say that, do you know what I mean by that?
A reverse? Say that again.
A reverse Dickie Davis. You remember Dickie Davis? He may be a bit young, but he was like a dude and he had like clearly dyed black hair.
Yes.
But he had a white bit in the front. You remember him? And a moustache. Well, this bloke's
vaguely.
Yeah, maybe it's just an old bloke reference, but this bloke's got the opposite of that. So he's got white hair with just this sort of black line in the middle of it, you know. Opportunity to become the captain of his own destiny, a true alpha male, this man says to him. And he offers it. He says, "I've got a job for you." And then it all gets a bit weird, actually. He sort of railroads him into doing this job that he doesn't ever describe to him what it's about. And he says to him, we've moved you into a flat. And he's like, what's going on? Yeah, and he says, "We got rid of your Toby jug collection." At which point, Tedward gets a bit angry at that. And I think, maybe I'm reading between the lines here, but I think the Toby jug reference means Funko Pop.
Right.
If there was ever a parallel there of people collecting Toby jugs, I suppose the modern version of that would be Funkos, wouldn't it? You know, maybe that's a little bit of a piss take. And then he meets Maxine. He gets introduced to Maxine, who's this lady with a hat on. And he says, you're going to be working with her. And all the time he's thinking, what is this job? What am I going to do? And so they drive up to this place and they get out and she says, right, put this waterproof, suit on, and here's a power wash jetpack thing for your back. They look a bit like Ghostbusters, Yeah. But rather than having these sort of ray gun things, they've got the power washers, like super strong power washers. And he says, well, come with me. And what it turns out, I don't want to spoil it too much because it does go on a bit from here, but it turns out that they go to orgies, and whenever anyone gets some jizz or other bodily fluids on them, they run in and power wash them, right? So they end up at an orgy, and she says, I'll show you how it does, and someone gets some jizz on their leg, so the woman power washes them. They say, oh, thanks a lot, and then they continue with their orgy. And she says, now your turn. And the woman says, oh, I've got jizz in my hair. So he goes over and just utterly sort of destroys them with this power wash. It's really strong power wash, and the people thank them. And that's his job. And I won't ruin where it goes from there because there's a twist on it from that point as well. This is definitely for people who like the work of Simon Hanselman. I know you're a fan, Dan.
Yes,
and I know that Josh has done stuff with Simon Hanselman. If you go to the YouTube channel, which I'll mention in a minute, I think it's him and Simon Hanselman going to photocopy their zines for a festival. It's one of the episodes. Maybe if you like someone like Jasper Juberville, or if you liked our comic Dirty Basement, something like that, maybe Nate Garcia. That's all his little circle of people that he hangs about with, or I see him as part of. And I'm sorry, but you can't currently get it in this country. Anyone in the States, go to his website, which I mentioned again in a second, and you'll get a copy of it. I've actually messaged Stephen from Third Bear, because I think it'd be a great one to get over at the distro there and see if they can maybe sort something out, some arrangement. It's not for me to do that, but I'm sort of keen to get his comics over here. So, and he was very fast to send me a copy. He said, "Oh, sure, here you go, man." He's got that sort of attitude. You can find a lot of his stuff. You go to Instagram, which is Josh_Pettinger, Pettinger. The store is Goiter, Goiter, Goiter.bigcartel.com. And you can see him on Manga Chat, which I think is a podcast and a YouTube channel. And you see Garcia and Hanselman and others sort of wandering around making comics with him. But it's definitely one to watch out for. I know you both done a lot of orgies. I think it's probably something you could have done with is a nice little power wash in the middle of it, when you're into sort of the third go round.
I've been the host, lay on the sandwiches and stuff.
Yeah.
I said a goiter is a lump or swelling at the front of a neck caused by swollen thyroid.
Stop fucking Googling things.
Live on air. That's what they called it.
He's looking for swinging parties, South London, right now, don't you?
No.
So there you go, Power Wash. Power Wash by Josh Pettinger. Look out for anything by Josh Pettinger. There you go. My second.
Nice.
Real.
Lots of great comics to check out this week, folks. So don't tell us we don't add to your wish lists or give you some great content, because as always, it's been fun talking comics. So come back next week for more of it, and a very interesting topic as well.
Oh yeah, we're ahead on next week's one, aren't we?
Yeah. So if there's anything you want us to talk about on upcoming shows, we're currently in the early stages of perhaps doing an updated new round of the creative process of making comics.
Yes.
Yeah. Why is it craft? Yeah, and that's how we're going to describe it. Would you like to talk about craft?
I'll tell you what, a lot of people seem to be losing their way around the print production process.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like the stage, you've made your comic, and then you've got to get it to the printer.
Yeah.
That whole putting it together and delivering the document for the printer to work on.
Yeah. So, look, I know this show has a certain reputation among certain circles, but we do endeavour to sort of drop knowledge on you as well as learn a bit more ourselves as well. So if there's anything you want to know about the comic making process, or how to do things better, or perhaps there's certain charity events or anything you've got upcoming, please let us know about it. You can email us awesomecomicspod@gmail.com, on the socials at the Awesome Pod, where we'll be posting up things about the shows, retweeting comics positivity type stuff, and basically just trying to share the good vibes of this medium we love. Also, if you're out there and want to join the Slack channel, please get in touch, because it's
had a couple of new members today, actually.
Feel good different channels, and so there's something for everyone on that. So get in touch with us and let us know. Thank you for listening to us, whether it was on the website awesomecomics.podbean.com. If you listen to us on Apple Podcasts, subscribe and leave a review. It helps get the word out about the show and everything we do. We're also on Spotify, Amazon, Stitcher, Podnose, Podknife. What are the networks are we on, Tony?
We're on Pod, Hero of the Moment, Uchi.
I don't know where to take that. Where can people find us online, etc.? Tony?
Neveronanything.com. You can find for all my links, and I forgot to mention, but I think tonight I'm recording a podcast for the Space Spinner 2000 AD podcast, which should be a laugh with Conrad. So have a listen out for that.
Be looking forward to that one. Awesome.
Yeah. Nice. Dan?
You can find me on Twitter at Vanguard Comic, and you can be Vanguard at vanguardcomic.com.
Brilliant.
That went well. That one.
Yeah, that's all right. That one.
Yeah. Well done. It can only get stronger and stronger as the year goes on. No, right, Dan.
Start low and then build your way up, and then comes like
metaphor for life, my friend.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah.
You can find me on social media at Jester Diablo. Thank you very much for listening, everyone. We hope you have a great week wherever you are in the world. We hope you're happy, healthy, and doing okay. I know it's crazy times in the world and crazy weather in the world, and no matter where you are, we hope you're doing all right because we love you very much, don't we, Dan?
Yeah.
Tony does as well. I'm not going to even give him the chance to say no. Because he's got lots of love in his heart. And
I do want the rain to fuck off. I've actually had enough of that.
Yeah.
Everything can fuck off.
Yeah.
But we're a very positive show, as you can tell. So while I leave the two grumpy old men from the Muppet Show to continue whinging about something, have a brilliant week. Read loads of comics, make loads of comics. Just share a good comic book with someone you know and love.
Yeah,
there's some recommends in the Slack.
Yeah.
I see some lovely recommends. There have been. So
I tell you what would be quite nice, right, on the Slack or on social media, whatever. If someone recommended a good comic book to you and you read it and you liked it, give a shout out to that comic book and to the person who recommended it.
I'm doing that all the time. Just did it.
Yeah, just it's always nice to see. And we always like.
Have you ever boned over a comic book? That's another question for you there.
No, you don't need to answer that one. But what you do need to do is have a brilliant week. And well, actually, what else should they do, guys?
Stay awesome.
Can't say better than that. Bye, everyone.
Word. Bye.
Bye.